But enough about insider trading.
Insider trading.
Have you heard of the that Shauna Ray person?
Shauna Ray.
Yeah, there's this. There's all talks about Shauna Ray. There's a show on TLC, I believe, that came out. It's called Shauna or something like that. Are you familiar with this, Kyle? No. So it's this gal who she's 22 years old. I'll show you a picture of her. She's 22 years old, and when she was a baby, she had this rare brain cancer. And when she underwent treatment for it, it caused like not developmental, but like growth effects on it. So this is the cover for TLC Shauna show. She's right there, the shorter one. She's just
like a little.
Guess. So she's 22 years old.
In this picture.
She's 22 years old in that picture. She looks like she's 8.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with this one?
No. I feel like I've seen her before maybe, but this is a recent show? I believe it's a recent show that TLC just did. And because the whole chaos is like, why people are kind of like excited about it is that she can't like buy alcohol. They'll turn her down. Like she can't buy. Sucks.
And she recently met a boyfriend, and he's a firefighter, and he has dwarfism. And so this is them together right there. Mm-hmm. She just looks like a little kid. She looks like a kid. She's 22 years old, and she's got a very childlike voice.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting that
yeah. So the big question is like, what do you like? How do you live day in and day? How do you convince people that you're really are 22?
I mean, I'd have to just carry my ID around everywhere.
But that's an easy fake ID. Their fake ID has been around for forever.
It's true. Like, how do you convince people?
Especially when your voice. It's one thing if you look 8.
Your voice is a little bit.
Actually, it's very hard because I don't know any time in history that you can recall be like somebody, doesn't look. If somebody doesn't look their age, is mostly like I'm 40, but you look like you're 28.
Yeah, it's the opposite.
But if you
I guess
if you physically look from the outside as an 8-year-old, and your voice matches the voice of an 8-year-old, and you're going around telling people that you're actually 22.
Like, can you convince anyone?
You can't. And in fact, her
I think now that she's kind of more famous, people know her. Maybe it's easier for her. But
to the people, you haven't heard about the story. So.
I didn't hear about it. That's such a hard thing to like have to live through.
But then, like, her parents know this, right? So they vouch for her. But then how do you...
Do you have to have like a person, come with you everywhere you go?
But like the guy that she met, I think his name is Thomas, I believe. He's a firefighter. And he does. It doesn't look like he has a very severe case of dwarfism. He looks like he's 5 foot tall. Like he maybe higher end of 4 feet tall. And especially being a firefighter, you'd have to, because there's a lot of stairs and a lot of gear you have to carry. But could you imagine what's your impression of like being in the dating world and you meet a guy and the guy has to have enough trust to believe you. Or to even come up and talk to you.
Well, imagine from the guy's perspective, like how would you feel?
So if I'm at the park, I'm single, and I'm going for a walk, and here's this, what looks like an 8-year-old is walking her dog, and she's giving me the googly eyes, and and she starts being pleasant and polite, and she's like, oh, maybe we should get coffee sometime. You're like, you're 8.
I bet she doesn't do that.
And then she'll go like, no, I'm actually 22. You're like, bullshit.
You're like, okay, girl.
I'm not going to jail.
I'm not getting in trouble.
You might fool somebody else, not this guy.
Not today, lady.
So how do you go from that conversation? Because I'm not going to this place, but I could imagine that. Wouldn't you have to be like a questionable person of character to be like, I'll take a chance?
Yeah, I guess if you say so.
Because once you meet the parents, they could be like, yeah, no, she's really 22.
Is, yeah.
Hey, she's had this
but
condition.
Like initially meeting people was probably very hard.
If you have like a smart kid like a Macaulay Culkin, who he could bamboozle you into be like, no, I'm actually, but you're like, with this situation, I don't know as the receiving person, the male. So the follow-up question I have is, would that male have to have questionable morals to trust that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong that he's dating a girl that looks like she's 8 that's actually 22, because on paper it's all out, it's all legal and consensual and fine. Mm-hmm. But that first initial connection, what guy goes, I believe you? Is that a questionable guy of morale?
I think it depends.
Is that a guy
on the situation?
Is that a guy that likes the idea of 8-year-olds? And then he trusts her and really
listen. This is a very unique situation, so it's hard to say.
Oh, I'm trying to hear what are your thoughts?
I don't know. I can only imagine how hard it was for her, to even be dating anybody.
Of course.
I think it's probably just these unique maybe situations where a friend was like, "Hey, I know a guy that you would actually really get along with." Maybe it was word of mouth. I can't even imagine trying to be on a dating site. And having, so people just try to call you out.
So, okay, let's put the hat off. Let's say, put the hat on of being her parents. Okay. Mm. So let's say our daughter has this rare condition, right? And she goes and says, "Mom, Dad, I want you to meet a guy who's very lovely. He has his own physical differences, who helps me connect with him, and the height difference, all that stuff is actually not as significant." And you go, "Cool, we'd love to meet him." Is there any question in your thought you go, what made you take a leap of faith on this one, that this one works out? Or what made you catch her eye?
Yeah. I feel like I would have some, I don't know. You always kind of have wonder and maybe have some reservations.
I would ask the question, be like, "Oh, what attracted you to my daughter?" Yeah. And like, "Well, she has a great personality." But when you first met her, you had no idea about her personality.
Yeah.
You had. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Do you see where I'm going with this?
It's because it's by looks usually.
It's one thing if somebody's, let's say, is a heavy person, or maybe an unattractive person, and they meet somebody who's attractive and fit. You can go I'm not shallow, and I'll take a risk to get to know their personalities. That's something you learn later. But in a situation here where you go, "Hey, this might be bad for me," what made you catch that eye?
I don't know. I don't even want to get into that.
You're not giving me anything to work with.
Because I don't, that's such a unique situation. I don't know what I would do, or if my daughter, was dating somebody, what you would think of the guy. It's very interesting.
You're playing such a safe card right now. It's very interesting. That's all you're saying. I will say this. I hope, and I don't know the story how they met, but I hope that it was maybe a situation where somebody was like, "Hey, let me connect you with so-and-so."
I would think it would have to be, or something similar to that, Mm-hmm. Because I'm sure she doesn't trust, I wouldn't trust people. Would you?
Would trust people?
Her. Do you think that she probably doesn't trust a lot of people because it's...
Well, why wouldn't she trust them?
Well, because people don't believe her when she says, "I'm this..."
Well, that's not necessarily whether or not she's trusting them. It's whether or not they are trusting her.
Well, I'm saying intentions also of people, like you were saying, guys dating.
If she's like, "Wait, why is he into me? If I look like I'm 8, weird? If I'm 8, is that your type 8 and you're just lucky that I'm legal?"
Is your type 8 years old?
Yeah, and you're just lucky that I'm legal. I'm curious about this Thomas feller. I really am.
Thomas.
I think that's his name, Thomas.
Hey, thanks for watching our Next Door Neighbors podcast.
And be sure to capture the full episode anywhere podcasts are streamed, and including our YouTube channel, Next Door Neighbors.